Man's best friend is feeling kind of Frankie. Here's your spooky spot on the Super7 Peanuts ReAction Franken-Snoopy figure. On October 2nd, 1950, Charles M. Schulz's iconic comic strip made its humble debut in 7 American newspapers. By the 1960s, Peanuts was an international hit. Charlie Brown's Schulz ill-fated yet eternally optimistic protagonist, first portrayed as a blissfully ignorant victim of mockery, set the stage for 50 years of simultaneously hilarious and poignant gags that would change the face of the funny pages forever. I know some would say that you can't celebrate Oh Hallows Eve without first watching It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. And while I would admit that's an annual tradition in my household as well, Franken-Snoopy is not actually based on It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, to disappoint some. It's actually inspired by a comic strip that I'll show you in a second that's actually advertised on the back of the packaging. But not letting ourselves get too ahead of ourselves, let's first grab the tape measure. Dangling here in front of the camera, just to see how tall Franken-Snoopy stands. He's a pretty small figure, but how small is he? He's about 3 1/4 inches in height, not to budge him while I'm doing that, and that works out to be a figure that's roughly 8 centimeters tall. I also picked this up over on Entertainment Earth. If you guys are interested, I can most definitely provide the link down below in the video description. But on to the inspiration of Franken-Snoopy. I'm going to slide the figure over just a little bit here and bring in the pretty cool looking card. Some have asked why I actually so meticulously cut these bubbles in the opener of these videos. It's actually so in this case for Franken-Snoopy, I might decide to put him back in the card because I don't think I really would have a purpose just to display him loose like this. It's a cool looking figure, but I think he looks much cooler though in the packaging. I'm going to again slide him over. I keep moving him over to the point where he's going to be at least have him at least in frame. But this is the original card, or this is the card that Franken-Snoopy is carded inside of. You can see everything is done in a green and black color scheme. There's Franken-Snoopy on the front, and while it doesn't again look any bit familiar, I'm sure to some, on the back, it's actually pulled from a comic from May 17th, 1964. I do like at least that Super7 put the date of the comic on the top, so you'd be able to reference it back and know exactly how old this is. I can freeze this if anybody would just certainly like to stop and read this for themselves. But at the beginning, you basically have a monster movie, somehow a monster movie that they're watching that has a dog portraying the kind monster. And then you can see there's Linus, there's Snoopy, and Charlie Brown all watching it. Charlie Brown says, "I don't know why I watch these Frankenstein movies. They scare me to death." Then he says, "Good grief. I hate to go to bed. I'll probably dream about the monster all night. One thing for sure," that is Charlie Brown continuing to say this, "is I'm going to have a night light on in my room." Linus proceeds to say, "Me too. Good night, Charlie Brown." Charlie Brown has a night light on. Or Linus has a night light on. Charlie Brown has one. And so does Snoopy as well in the last final closing panel. Again, it's a very simple comic, but enough, I guess, to be inspiring this figure to be created. Now, I will say, though, as cool as I like the idea that they made this based on a vintage comic strip, I will say that they take some liberties when it comes to designing this character. If I was to take the card, actually just put the card here down for a second and move move Snoopy's arms out to kind of recreate what we're happening or what we're getting here from the comic. First of all, if they decided to do green, which clearly they have, I would have cut to the same color scheme and had like the shirt green, his hands green, and his face green. Whereas in this case, they've actually colored the figure front in brown. Not sure why they would have done that. You know, the other thing that also kind of bothers me a little bit about this is the coloring of the eyes. From what I'm gathering, at least, and I can only base it from this, and of course what we see here on the top here, it looks actually like he's got either eyelids or just pebbles for eyes. I would imagine it's the latter. It's pebbles. But then if you look at his eyes, though, they should just be solid black. And I almost feel like they shouldn't have even added the white to his eyes. They should have made them just solid black instead. Or the part that is the white, color it in green. So if anything, it's just the pupils that are actually showing. Kind of here, again, it looks like he's got reflective pebbles. On this side, though, and I think more the closer approximate, you can actually see he's got eyelids and eyeballs, or little pupils, little dots for eyeballs. I think that's what they should have done instead for this figure. and either done it all in black and white, like here, or done it all then in green, like advertised here on the front of the packaging. Other than that, though, I think it's a neat looking figure. I mean, again, like they've added a lot of unnecessary, I feel, colors to it. They could have kept really just sticking it to the green and just to the black. But for what it is, it's actually not a bad looking little Snoopy. Some additional detailing that kind of gets lost when you see it in the comic is all the additional texturing that they did to the top of his head. It's sort of more just suggested with really bold lines of black, but they've actually gone and detailed that a lot more. Like his staples, for example, have been added a little bit of silver that wouldn't have been present in the comic. You can see, again, like the whites of his eyes. I don't really like the whites of his eyes, to be honest. I kind of wish, again, that they could have just kept it all the green. Got the little bolts there on the sides of his neck. Typical Frankenstein stuff you would check off. And again, like you've got the long... He doesn't have necessarily a really long jacket, and he doesn't have either very broad shoulders either. I feel like in the comic, they kind of make it a little bit more broader, but I guess if you have his arms down, they do make for more wider-looking torso. He's got just completely flat hands here. But again, like I like the coloring of green that they used. I just wish that they would have used a lot more of it. And instead of having the green here for the center section, they decided to go with brown. And instead of having black for pants, they decided to keep them with a gray color scheme. He's got very flat feet. He also does have pegs on the undersides of his feet, although the figure does not include any display stand. I think a display stand would have been fun. In fact, just to put the figure down here 1 second, one more time, bringing back in the packaging. Why do we keep bringing back in the packaging? I think if they had found the way to take this and made it into a display stand, stay with me on this, made that into like just a rectangular display stand, put a little peg right there or anywhere, and then if you had a means where you can actually attach the figure on top of the display stand, then at least you'd actually have the source material below it, and you'd be able to reference right away where the inspiration came for Franken-Snoopy. Just an idea thrown out there. Either way, though, the figure doesn't sadly come included with any display stand whatsoever, but he stands fine. I mean, there's no problems with his standing whatsoever. For the figure's posability, now with the ReAction figures, they're pretty limited. So all of really what you're going to be getting here is just a swivel in the head. So the head rotates, yeah, all the way around. The arms rotate also all the way around. There's no hand swivel or anything like that. There's no waist swivel either. 5 points of articulation, 5 points of articulation, 5 points of articulation. The only other thing he has also is swiveled legs. Not to the full point where you can actually have him seated. Well, I guess you could have him seated, but he's going to be leaning back quite a lot. But at least he does have leg articulation. Like overall, a good-looking figure. I mean, it's one of those rare occurrences. Super7's been doing that a lot. Super7's been doing that a lot, actually, with the ReAction figures. It's really given them the chance to kind of expand, stretch out their arms, so to speak, and try sort of uncharted waters. They would never do this with the Ultimate line. But I find with like the ReAction figures is where you get some of the real obscure figures getting released as figures. And the idea of actually getting ourselves like a Franken-Snoopy, though again, he's not the most realistic or matching the color or the source material. I think again, they probably should have just kept it all the green and all the black, or at the very least, release this as a black and white version as shown here in the back of the packaging. Now you guys all know the origins of Franken-Snoopy, but do you know the origins as to why I picked this figure up in the first place? Actually, I was over on Entertainment Earth's website picking up other things, and periodically I like to go to their hot off their truck option, which if you go to the site, it's at the top left-hand corner, but it's basically all the stuff that literally just came off the truck and into their warehouse. It's all the brand new things. And while sort of just perusing through that with a little bit of extra money in my budget, I actually stumbled across Franken-Snoopy. And I thought not only would it be fun for something to show off during Halloween, but it also would be a fun little decoration piece to bring out every Halloween. With the ReAction figures on average, they're about that $20 price point, so there's not going to break a budget at all. And for that, you're getting a very simple looking figure with very simple articulation. 5 points, in fact, of articulation in the head, the shoulders, and the legs. The colors are bright here in Franken-Snoopy. It evokes certainly the idea of a universal monster, Frankenstein. And of course, it actually does pull it from something. I mean, if they had just said, let's make a Franken-Snoopy for no reason whatsoever, I'd be like a little less interested, I think, to probably pick it up. As cool as it may look as a Franken-Snoopy, I kind of like it more so the idea that it's actually attached to a real-life comic, something that Schultz would have done back in the day. While I do think it's a nice-looking figure, I do honestly think, though, that Super7 took a little bit of creative luxuries when it came to designing Franken-Snoopy. For the most part, he looks exactly like he does from the comic, but I think if you really want to have him closest to the comic, either have him in black and white, or like they did advertise on the front of the card, have him all in green. Not just the parts of his skin, but just either green or black. Black for his outfit, black for his ears, and black for his shoes, but everything else should have been green. Not giving him the gray pants, not giving him the brown top. Just my own personal opinion, that's all. And I also probably wouldn't have made his eyeballs white. Just kept it green with the rest of his body. Again, it's a very simple looking figure. And for me, again, when it probably comes to wrapping up this review, he's going to go back into the card for now. He's going to go on the shelf with the rest of my collectibles. If you guys are interested and would like to grab Franken-Snoopy for yourself, like I said, he is available right now over on Entertainment Earth, to which I will provide the link down below in the video description. Also, let me know down below in the comments section, what are some of your favorite Halloween specials to watch every October? It doesn't have to be the go-to ones with Michael Myers, but what are some of your favorite, like, cartoon specials or something along those lines? Something that maybe you even grew up with as a kid. Let me know down below in the comments section. And certainly as well, if you enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. If you're loving the content you guys are seeing and do want to stick around for more of the rest of Spottober is still coming your way. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, like I said, down below, and turn on the bell notification. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.